Hi, and welcome to the second of our topics classes. Today we're going to be examining breathing for singers. We'll look at how we breathe, the 3 or some say 4 phases of the breath cycle. We'll talk about the benefits of deep breathing and how breathing for singers differs from other kinds of breathing. Finally, we'll look at the relationship of breathing to the larynx, to the vocal folds, what some people call breath balance or breath support. In this, I'm going to ask you, if you're comfortable doing so, to actually lay on your back on the floor for some of this. That will give us a chance to really feel the gravitational elements of breathing and to explore total relaxation. So feel free to just take a moment now and clear some space on the floor. If you're not comfortable laying on the floor, you can do the same exercises seated in a chair with your back resting against the back of the chair. The important thing is to find a position in which you're really comfortable. So with that in mind, let's actually start by doing a breath exploration exercise to see if we can discover how we breathe and the 4 parts of the breath cycle. Join me on the floor if you would. All right, so once you're on the floor, begin by just relaxing. Relax your head down to the floor. Let your arms be at your side or anywhere that's comfortable. Maybe the toes of your feet splay a little bit outwards. And just take a few nice full breaths in and out. Let one hand rest gently on your belly. And just notice how it rises and falls as you breathe. Really take nice full breaths in as you breathe. Try and fill up the lungs. Check with your shoulders, wiggle them a bit. Be sure they're nice and relaxed. And the next time you breathe in, once you're at your full inhalation, hold that breath in, but don't hold it with your throat. Hold it with the muscles that actually cause the inhalation. So you'll breathe in. You'll sustain in that wonderful belly expanded position. Then relax and breathe out. Do that a few times. You breathe in. You sustain at that point of maximum inhalation, and then you relax and breathe out. Keep going at your own pace. Through this, the throat should feel very open, very relaxed. The next time you do that, you breathe in, you sustain. As you exhale, exhale on the letter S, and just see how long you can make that S continue. Did you notice with your hands at the very last little bit of that, how maybe you felt actually some work in your abdominal muscles? That's normal to feel at the very end of that. Throughout the rest of the breath, though, the abdominal muscles should be fairly relaxed and free. Let's try that again. So taking a nice full breath in, sustaining it in, then releasing on S. Now, maybe your S went longer than mine, or maybe it was quicker. Really, whatever it was for you, that's okay. We each have different lung capacities, and frankly, we're probably using different amounts of pressure with our tongue on the alveolar ridge of the mouth. So the speed at which the air comes out is going to be different for each of us. We'll talk about how to regulate that more later. For now, it's okay, whatever your own pace with that is. And I should say, throughout these exercises, if you find that I'm breathing slower than you breathe or faster than you breathe, you should feel free to breathe at your own pace. This is really about getting to know your own body and how it breathes. Now, I'd like us to try something related. We're going to breathe in, sustain, and then we're going to exhale on that S as we were. But we're not ever going to let our abdominal muscles become tight. We're going to keep them loose through the whole process. And you won't be able, if you do that, to get out the last 10, 15% of your air. And that's okay, right? But just see where the air naturally stops. If you're relaxing through the exhalation, if you never tighten, where does the air come to a natural stop? So take your hands, place them on your abdominals. Be sure your belly's relaxed. You might want to just sort of bounce around it a little bit. Say, okay, yeah, no tension there. Good. And you can even do that as you're exhaling, just to check in and be sure you're not tightening here, you're not tightening any of the obliques as well. Everything really relaxed and free. Okay, here we go. Taking a nice full breath in. Then sustaining at the top of that breath, checking in here, still free? Yeah, still free. Now relaxing on an S. Now, if I had pushed, if I'd used my abdominal muscles, I probably had a good 15% more air than I could have exhaled. But that's okay, right? The point of this is to just find where does the relaxation part of exhalation end. You see, there are 4 parts of the breath cycle. There's the active inhalation part, known as inspiration in medical language. That's when we're actively bringing the air into our lungs. There's post-inhalation. This is where we're relaxing and the air comes out as we relax. So take a deep breath in, deep as you can. Deeper, and relax. You feel that air that rushes out when you relax? That's in technical terms, that's not known as exhalation, but that's known as post-inspiration. In other words, that's just the period of relaxing after we inhale. Yeah? Good. So we've got the active inhalation part, the inspiration part of the breath. We have the relaxing exhalation part of the breath, the post-inspiration. And then we have the part of the breath beyond that, where we actually use our abdominal muscles to get the last 10 or 15% out of the air. So take a nice deep breath in, really deep, really full. Relax. Exhale more. That little bit is the active expiration, the active exhalation part of the breath. So that's the 3rd part of the breath cycle. So again, breathe in fully. Relax. Actively exhale more. And relax. And you notice when you relax after actively exhaling, that last 10-15%, naturally a little bit more air comes in. And that is the post-expiration part of the breath. So the active exhaling, the use of the abdominal muscles, the 5 muscles of the abdominal, to exhale, and we relax, and a little bit of air rushes in. And that's the post-exhalation part of breathing. So we have those 4 parts of breathing: the active inhalation, post-inhalation, relaxation, active exhalation, the abdominal muscles, and post-exhalation, where we relax and the air comes back in. And the important thing for us is to become aware of when we're in each of those parts of the breath. When are we just relaxing to exhale? When are we actively exhaling? When are we relaxing to inhale? And when are we actively inhaling? So let's try. We've already found a little bit where we end the post-inspiration, where we end the relaxing phase of exhalation. So let's find that again. So we breathe in, relax, breathe out more, all of it, every last bit of air, relax. Great. Those are the 4 parts of breathing separated. Do that a few times on your own. Actively breathing in fully, holding it in, relaxing, exhaling. Actively exhaling every last drop of air, relaxing, inhaling. On your own. Go ahead. So those are the 4 parts of breathing. Inspiration, where we actively draw air into our lungs. Post-inspiration, where we relax and some of the air leaves the lungs. Exhalation, where the abdominal muscles become involved, getting the last 10-15% of air out of our lungs. And post-expiration, or post-exhalation, where we relax the abdominal muscles and some air comes back into our lungs. As singers, we want to be very aware of those 4 phases and also of the transition between those phases. Because for us, the important thing, as we're exhaling especially, is that we have a steady flow of air through the entire exhalation, through both the post-inspiration phase and also the active exhalation phase. Because in doing so, we'll be able to create a beautiful, sustained tone in our singing. There won't be any moment where the airflow drops off and causes the voice to waver. So we're going to do a number of exercises with that. But before we do, let's talk actually about the physiological mechanics of breathing. How do we breathe? So before I actually give you the answer, would you just take a second and would you try and explain, out loud even, how do the muscles of breathing work? What causes the air to come in? What causes the air to go back out? What muscles are involved in doing that? When are they actively involved? When are they relaxing? Etc. So go ahead, talk it out for yourself. How do you breathe? We've been doing it all our lives. Can you explain the process? Go ahead. So let's break it down, shall we? We're actually going to talk about the muscles and the physiology involved in breathing. To begin, it's worth thinking of how our upper body is laid out. Effectively, and this is a little bit of simplification because we're not going to worry about the heart or the cardiac system. We're not going to worry about the spine and all of that. But we're going to take kind of the front part of the body and how it all works, yeah? And effectively, you can think of your chest and belly, of this as all being like two big sacs of air, fluid, etc., right?
We have the thoracic cavity. This is the upper part of the torso, which contains the lungs, the heart, etc. Then below the thoracic cavity, we have the abdominal cavity. The abdominal cavity contains all of our muscles of digestion, including the liver, the gallbladder, the stomach, the intestines. So you can think of these as kind of being little sacs of organs, and the relationship between the two very much helps determine how we breathe.
And dividing them is what's known as the diaphragm. The diaphragm is a muscle that looks a little bit like an upside-down coffee filter. When it's relaxed, it has this shape. And like all muscles, when it tenses, it gets thicker and shorter. And the result of that, because its endpoints are relatively fixed, is that it gets flatter. So if you take a diaphragm like this, it gets flatter like this. And in doing so, it creates a vacuum in the thoracic cavity. And the lungs, therefore, expand into that vacuum, into that low pressure zone, causing air to come in through the throat into the lungs. At the same time, the muscles on the outer sides of the rib cage tighten. And the effect of this is, from the sides, as they tighten, like this, they draw the rib cage, really I should do it up here, instead like this, they draw the rib cage up. So the rib cage is expanding up and out. At the same time, the diaphragm is contracting down. And so all of this serves to make more space in the thoracic cavity, causing a low pressure zone that causes the lungs to expand and draw the air in. It's, I think, important here to debunk a couple of myths. Our lungs are not muscles, and the lungs don't have muscles on them that cause us to breathe in. The lungs are basically sacs. They can no more actively cause air to come in or out than a plastic bag can cause air to come in or out of it. Instead, because they're surrounded by this thoracic cavity, when the thoracic cavity expands and creates a vacuum, they open up with air coming in. And when the thoracic cavity contracts, they shrink, causing air to go out of the lungs. So, what causes our breathing in? What muscles are involved in breathing in? The primary muscle that causes inhalation is the diaphragm, which when it tenses becomes shorter and flatter, causing the thoracic cavity to expand, causing air to come into the lungs. At the same time, there's a little bit of motion of the intercostal muscles, those muscles between the ribs that lift ever so slightly the rib cage up. Now, here's a difference already between breathing for singers and breathing in general. Generally as singers, right, and we talked about this, we want our posture to be axial and noble. We want already a little bit of lift in the rib cage throughout the full breath process. So normally in life when we breathe in, we breathe out, and our rib cage falls. I'll do this sideways so you can see it even more. Normal life breathing. And you see how the rib cage moves up and down as I do that? I want to point one other thing out. Just how absolutely unworried I am about what my belly looks like in this process. Good, healthy breathing, the belly comes out. If you ever see statues of Buddha, you'll notice the belly out, right? Many of these practices that exist across cultures that are rooted in deep breathing. A big part of that is learning to release the abdominal muscles so that your belly can be relaxed, so the diaphragm can be totally free to come down and push the guts out, that we're not compressing our guts as we do that. We could breathe just as deeply with our belly tucked in, but in doing so, we're going to have a fight between the diaphragm pushing down on the stomach, the intestines, and the abdominals pushing in. And we don't need that. It doesn't serve any major purpose for us to do that. We can use the abdominals to create a little bit more air pressure as we exhale. And there's a whole style of breathing that we won't talk about too much tonight, known as appoggio, or the leaning into the breath, that some people call the tuck, right? That's an advanced topic. That's a topic that is, I think, best discussed one-on-one with a voice teacher because of the subtleties of musculature involved in that. But for our purposes, we want, for the moment, as we're breathing in, to really relax that belly, right? So again, just watch as I breathe in, watch my belly, and how truly not self-conscious I am about how it just whoop, pops on out. Yeah? Great, okay. So here I go, breathing in. Watch my belly and watch my chest as well. This is normal life breathing, yeah? And did you see normal life breathing? What kind of happens first is the belly expands and then the rib cage rises, yeah? In breathing for singing, we generally want to start with the rib cage already lifted. And then we breathe in and we breathe out. Let me switch hands so you can see a little better. We breathe in and we breathe out. Right, so not too much is happening in the chest area. We've got that lift going generally. Good. Excellent. So inhalation, again, what muscle is primarily responsible for the inhalation process of breathing? The diaphragm. Good. And now the post-inhalation or post-inspiration part of breathing. This is the relaxing part of exhalation. What causes that to happen? Good, try. Take a really full breath in. Tank up, all the way, really tank up. Now relax. What muscle just relaxed and caused you to exhale air? It's the diaphragm. The diaphragm, remember, as we tense the diaphragm, it becomes shorter and straighter, pulling air in. As we relax the diaphragm, the air goes out. This is myth number 2. The diaphragm doesn't actively push air out of the lungs. In relaxing, it causes air to go out of the lungs. Right? In the same way that the bicep causes our arm to move this way, and if we have a weight, we can relax the bicep, and it causes the arm to go down. Right? But the bicep isn't pushing the arm down. If we have to push the arm down, we have an oppositional muscle, right? We have the tricep that causes the arm to push down. Similarly, right, if we want to exhale faster than the diaphragm can relax, we have the muscles of the abdomen to pull our guts in and up and push the diaphragm up faster. But the diaphragm, in relaxing, causes air to go out, right? That's the post-inspiration phase of breathing. And then, to get more air out, we have to engage the abdominal muscles, which cause our guts to go in and up, pushing the diaphragm even farther up, and causing that last 10 to 15% of air to come out of our lungs. And that's how breathing works through the full process. That's the musculature, right? And then we relax the abdomen, the abdominal muscles. We get a relaxed bit of air coming in, and then it all begins again. We actively inhale, diaphragm lowering, relax, post-inspiration, diaphragm raising, then abdomen engages, bringing the guts, causing the diaphragm to go up even farther, and then we relax, comes back in, then we actively inhale again. That's the breath cycle. That's a breath cycle for life. That's a breath cycle for singing. Now the reality is, in life, we don't generally, most of us, we don't generally go through the full range of motion of the diaphragm. We almost certainly don't go through engaging the abdominals for the last 10-15% of breath. It turns out, in fact, that if you look at longitudinal studies of life expectancy, one of the best predictors of life expectancy at relatively young ages is lung capacity. And here's the great news. Whatever your lung capacity is right now, you can learn to expand it by going through the full range of breathing in your day-to-day life. So let's practice. Feel free to lay down on the floor again, or stand or sit. For this, I'm going to stay standing, actually, myself. And we're going to do an exercise that's about getting used to and comfortable with the extreme edges of breathing. That's the extreme edge of full inhalation and the extreme edge of full exhalation, where we've actively, in those last 10-15%, engaged the abdominal muscles. We're going to do an exercise to make us comfortable with the extremes of breathing, the extreme inhalation, where the diaphragm is working its true hardest to get as much air in as possible. And the extreme exhalation, where the abdominals contract, pushing the guts up and the diaphragm up even further to get that last 10 or 15% of air out of our lungs. Here's the process. We'll relax our arms at our sides. If you want, place a hand on your chest to feel that axial noble posture throughout. We're going to actively inhale for 4 counts, filling as fully as possible our lungs. We'll sustain that for 4 counts, doing an itty-bitty inhale, exhale, dog pant through those 4 counts, to just feel our diaphragm working at the full extent of its range and to work it a little bit more there. Then we're going to exhale on an F over 8 counts. Basically, the first 4 of that will be the diaphragm relaxing, and the last 4 of that is going to be the active exhalation of the abdominals. Try by the end of those 8 counts to have fully exhaled your air. And then, and this part is the scariest part, but you'll be okay. Then, for 4 counts, we're going to stay fully exhaled, every bit of air out of our lungs. Then we're going to relax, let the air come back into our lungs, and breathe normally. 4 in, 4 sustain, little panting. 8 out on F. 4 holding that full exhalation of air. I'll talk us through it. Arms either relaxed at your side or one hand on your chest, feeling that axial noble posture. Here we go. Breathe in for 1, 2, 3, 4 full in. Sustain little pants in and out through a full in breath. Out on F. 2, 3, 4. Now the active part. 5, 6. Get it all out. 7. Get it all out. Get it all out. 8. Sustain it out. 2, 3, 4. Relax. Breathe normally. Good. A couple of things. Be sure after you inhale, and even as you inhale, that the abdominal muscles are totally relaxed. As you start to exhale, that they're relaxed, and then that they start to engage and really engage for that last bit. And here, as you fully exhaled, be sure your throat stays relaxed and open, that you're not closing down going, or anything like that, but that your throat is just as open there as it was when you're fully inhaled and doing little microscopic pants in and out. Right? Same thing when you go. But the throat stays totally open through that. Here we go again. This time try relaxing your arms at your side. Just feeling that beautiful lift, feeling the relaxed hips, relaxed knees. Yeah, wiggle them around a bit. Good. Here we go. Breathing in. 2, 3, all the way to full. Really breathe in. Little pants. 2, 3, 4. Relaxed exhalation. 2, 3, 4. Active exhalation. 2 to the last bit of air. Get it all out. Get it all out. And stay there. 2, 3, 4. Relax. Good. Now notice in that last relax where the air came in, if it might have sounded like this. Right? If you heard anything like that, it's a sign that you had throat tension as you did it. We want to get rid of that throat tension. Good. Let's now up the stakes. We're going to breathe in over 8 counts. Still sustain for 4. This time we're going to exhale over 12, and we're going to stay exhaled for 4 more at the end of that. So it's 8, 4, 12, 4. Relax your arms. Here we go. Breathing in for 8, 2, 3, 4, 5. Really filling up. 6. Really filling up. 7, 8. Sustain little pants in and out. 2, 3, 4. Now relaxing exhalation. 2, 3. Remember we're going for 12. 4, 5, 6. Abdominals start to engage. 8, 9, 10. Get every last bit. 11, 12. Stay there. Fully exhaled. And relax. Breathe normally. Good. As you're exhaling, still use an F sound or an S sound so you feel a little bit of resistance. This will mirror a little bit of the resistance that the larynx gives as we sing to the airflow. Yeah, good, good, good. Again. Here we go. In for 8, sustain 4 little pants. Out for 12, sustain 4. 2. Here we go. Breathing in. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sustain little pants. 2, 3, 4. Breathing out on F. 2, 3, 4. Now abdominals start to engage. 6, 7, 4 more. 9, 10. Get the last bit. Don't collapse your chest. 12. Stay there. 2, 3, 4. And breathe. As singers, the main difference in how we breathe from how most people breathe in day-to-day life is, number 1, we tend to take a fuller breath. And number 2, in day-to-day life, we generally tend only to use the post-inspiration part of exhalation. In other words, just the relaxation. The result of that is most people in day-to-day life take very shallow breaths. They're only breathing in 20-25% of their real lung capacity. And like most other tissue in the human body, if we don't explore its full range of motion, it gets a little bit calcified, tenser, and less elastic. These deep breathing exercises can help keep you healthy and breathing healthily for life. They're good not just for singing, they're good for every day of your life. The other part of breathing for singers that's different is that we work very hard to make the rate of airflow out consistent in both the post-inspiration part of exhalation, that's the part where the diaphragm is relaxing, and also in the active exhalation part. It's because we want to be able to sing on both of those parts of exhalation, not just the first 80-ish part of our breath, but all 100% of our breath. We often won't need that last 20-15% of breath, but when we do, we want to be ready for it. And moreover, we know that as we're getting to the last 20% of the relaxation part of exhalation, that air is coming out slower unless we already start to actively engage the abdominal muscles to keep the speed constant. So as we exhale on an S or an F, listen for the volume of that S and even the pitch of that S to try and keep it really constant throughout. Let's do that deep breathing exercise one more time. This time exhaling on an S, and we're going to exhale this time for a full 16 counts of S. Here we go. Relaxed arms, noble axial posture, hips relaxed, balance on the feet, neck relaxed. We breathe in 8, we sustain 8 with a little pant. We exhale an S, 16, we sustain, exhaled 4 at the end of that. Here we go. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, really fill, 7, 8 little silent pants, 2, 3, exhaling 16 on S. Sorry, I forgot to sustain for 4. That's okay. That's okay. Do you notice at the end of that? How hard you have to work to actually get the air to move at the same rate for that last 4? This is a major, huge exercise to really understand the muscular dynamics of breathing and of breathing for singing, where our primary goal is to be able to exhale at a consistent rate, at a number of different speeds, but with consistent speed of exhalation through the full range of the breath. So we've talked about breathing, and all that is great, right? This breathing, this engagement of all the way down from the floor of the pelvic cavity through to the larynx, this is just great for us in our lives as a whole, and that's wonderful. How do we connect that to the singing voice? To do this, we need to understand a little bit, don't worry, just a little bit, about how the singing voice, the vocal folds, actually work. What's going on there in the larynx? And so to do this, we're going to look in a moment at a drawing. But first, would you lean your neck back and just find the bony protrusions here in your neck? Yeah? Great. That's the thyroid cartilage. That's the thyroid cartilage. Sometimes known as the Adam's apple for cis males. And some people say, oh, only males have the Adam's apple. False, false, false. It just grows larger during puberty because of the testosterone in cis males than it does for cis females. But we all have the same anatomy, just of different sizes in there. Yeah? So you find your thyroid. That front point, you find that front top point, right behind that is where your vocal folds come together in a little V shape in the front. In fact, if you just hum a little, you'll feel the thyroid cartilage vibrating because your vocal folds, which are attached to the thyroid cartilage, are vibrating. So pick a note, take a nice full breath in and hum. But did you feel that vibration? Right, that is literally the vibration of the vocal folds right there on the other side of the thyroid. I really enjoy that. I have to say there's something about just being in this kind of physical contact with my vocal folds and just, yeah, you're back there and I can feel you vibrating, that I find really wonderful. Okay, so now let's look at a drawing. This drawing is this is looking down on the vocal folds. And you know, this looks huge, but it's worth recognizing that for soprano and alto voices, your vocal folds are only about the size of a dime. All that fits within the space of a dime. For tenor bass voices, within the space of a nickel. So we're talking about some really tiny little muscles there, and they are muscles. The vocal folds are known in physiology as the thyroarytenoid muscles. Most muscles are named for the places that they attach. And so these are attached to the thyroid cartilage. That was what we were just feeling, as well as to the 2 arytenoid cartilage behind. Now, when we sing, for instance, if I sing an A220, my vocal folds actually come together and apart 220 times a second. So if I go la, every second, my vocal folds are vibrating together and apart 220 times. How do we do that? That's really, really fast, yeah? Looking at that picture, how do you suppose it works? Maybe we actively bring the arytenoids together and back there 220 times a second, right? You see that little muscle between the 2 arytenoid cartilage, the arytenoides or interarytenoidus muscle? Yeah, maybe that's bringing it together 200 times. No, it's not actually, it's not. In fact, no muscle is controlling the back and forth motion. Instead, it's a pure physics principle that's known as Bernoulli's principle. So take a look at this video, and you see these two soda cans. They're empty on a table. I've got a question for you. This guy is going to blow air through, in between the two cans. I'd like you to predict, what will happen to the cans? How will the cans move? Okay, let's take a look and see. Was it what you expected? Did you expect them to come together like that, and then once together be pushed forwards? Why does that happen? Why did they come together rather than blowing apart? Shouldn't the air we're blowing push them apart? All this comes back to what's known as Bernoulli's principle. Bernoulli's principle states that faster moving air has lower pressure than still air or slower moving air. This is the principle that makes it possible for airplanes to fly. If you look at the side of an airplane wing, the upper part of it has more curve than the lower. That forces the air, as it hits the wing, to travel faster over the top than under the bottom. And as Bernoulli's principle tells us, faster moving air is lower pressure. So the high pressure zone under the plane lifts the plane up into the air. That's Bernoulli's principle. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to take these two half sheets of paper, and I'm going to put my fingers between them like this so that there's a gap between them. Can you see that gap back there? Yeah? Great. So I'm going to put a finger in so there's a gap. And you can try this at home too. Get a piece of paper and cut it up. It's really great. Yeah? And then I'm going to lean over it and I'm going to blow down through. Let me back up so you can see this better. I'm going to blow through the gap I've created at the top in between the two pages. With your knowledge of Bernoulli's principle, what do you suspect these pages are going to do? Are they going to come together or go apart? Hopefully you said they're going to come together because the air on the outside of them is not going to be moving, but the air inside is. Right? Faster moving air has lower pressure. It's going to create a vacuum in between these two pages that will suck them together. Yeah? So let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at that. Did you see how they came together? I'll do that again. They came together. Not only that, they vibrate a bit once they do. They vibrate together, apart, together, apart, together, apart. And this is exactly what happens with our voice when we sing. As long as the arytenoid muscle bring the arytenoid cartilage close enough together, when air moves through that V of the vocal folds, the vacuum will suck them together, and then no air will be able to get out. And so air pressure will build up behind them and cause them to go apart. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And here's the magical thing. There's a perfect speed of air in which the closure of the vocal folds is really perfect. No air escapes. But there's a slower speed of air where the vocal folds don't close entirely. And so often, if you have a breathy tone as a singer, it can be a sign that your air is not moving fast enough. No, that's not the only possible cause, but it's one cause. And in fact, faster moving air can lead to more efficient use of the air. When your air moves fast enough, it will actually last longer because it's creating an effective low pressure zone that causes the vocal folds to completely close. So now what we're really talking about is the concept of breath management. How we manage the exhalation of air and how we balance the appropriate amount of effort and resistance from the vocal folds. You can actually consciously control how close the vocal folds are together. We don't generally do it, but this can be helpful especially if you find when you sing that your voice gets tired quickly. It's often a sign that you're working too hard with your vocal folds that if you can relax them apart a bit more and use more air, then the musculature of the voice will not have to work nearly so hard. And the larger muscles, right, involved in breathing can take a lot of that effort away. So let's try something. We're going to actively bring the vocal folds together. So imagine you're lifting something and you're going to go, and you feel how the air is blocked from exiting your lungs, right? The theory is that our vocal folds actually evolved not just to make it possible for us to communicate, but in fact, to be able to stop all air exiting our lungs so that we could build up more pressure, more outward pressure in our thoracic cavity so that we'd be able to lift heavy objects without our upper body collapsing. So that was stopping the air completely. That was the arytenoides cartilage being drawn together, fully closing the vocal folds. And you can blow a little bit of air through there, and it's not a pleasant sound, but it's worth doing to understand what too much pressure between the vocal folds is like. Let's try it. So we go, first we're going to sound like we're lifting something heavy, then we're just going to blow air through that. It'll sound hideous. That's okay. This is to explore. Yeah, we breathe in. Not a very pleasing sound, right? But just to understand. Now, let's do the opposite end. Breathe in and out silently. And we're going to exhale as quick as we can and see if we can create a vocalization with our arytenoides cartilage too far apart, with our vocal folds too far apart. Here we go. Breathe in. Exhale as quick as you can to make a vocalization. I'll demonstrate. I have to exhale very fast to do that, right? Because it'd be as though I were holding these sheets of paper with 3 fingers in between. It'd be very hard to get them to come together. I can barely do it, right? This is again a Goldilocks thing. There's too close, there's too far, and there's just right. When we breathe, always the arytenoides muscle, the muscle between the arytenoides is relaxed so that the vocal folds are open when we breathe in. As we exhale, it comes together just enough that we're able to vocalize. Not here, but somewhere in here, yeah? And you can try this. You can start fully glottal pressure. Opening and exhaling. Opening as you exhale. And there's the Goldilocks place in there. Let's try it. Breathe in. Yeah, we always want to find that Goldilocks place. And when we do, that's really what we mean when we say breath management, breath support. It's finding the right amount of pressure between the folds, the right amount of resistance to the air, and the right amount of active exhalation energy. It's possible to make a very loud sound with high pressure here and high pressure here, but it's not healthy. It's a really overpressurized sound, right? Whereas if I relax here and relax here, it's a much healthier, freer sound of a similar dynamic, right? And that's what we're going for. That's what we mean by breath management. Let's sing a long tone together. We're going to breathe. We're going to do a real full breath in, so saying it 4 counts, and just control the relaxation to have a nice long tone and explore that level of tension to find the right balance. Here we go. Breathe in, 4 counts. In, 2, 3, sustain 4, 1, 2, 3. Any long note. Go ahead, you pick. Let's say 8-ish counts. 6, 7, 8, release. You almost certainly still have air left over, right? When you find the right balance at that tempo, you can go 16, 24, 32 counts with not too much problem, So that's a quick introduction to breathing for singers. There's one more element to know. The higher we go in our range, the more actively we need to exhale. The more we need a little bit more support, which is frankly just a fancy way of saying air pressure for the tone. So let's do an exercise together. We're going to sing an octave slide. For me, that's going to start here. And as I do that, oh, sorry, let me turn down my input a bit so I don't blow you away. And as I do that, I'm going to ever so slightly increase the air pressure as I go off, right? And to help us get a sense of this feeling, I'd like you to take as though you had a sword in your hand, right? And we're going to step forward and send that sword forward into something for target practice on there with a real thrust of it. You feel a sense of directionality into it. Yeah? Here we go. Right? So we go, breathe in, we go. Here. 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 Basses, you may need to drop an octave. Altos, you probably need to drop an octave at some point here too. And so on and so forth, right? So the higher we go, the more we need that air support. And what that is just basically that there's more air pressure coming out of the lungs that supports that motion, that gives enough, frankly, air speed when even at very high pitches, when frankly the vocal folds, like rubber bands, are stretched quite taut at that point, right? And so you need more air pressure to cause them to do that apart and togetherness. And so the last component of breath, so if we think about it, the various components of breath management are controlling the relaxation of breath and controlling then the active engagement of breath. And in the middle range, it's really just about relaxing the diaphragm first and then engaging the abdominals. But in higher ranges, you won't have enough air pressure, enough support to actually get the notes you want, to cause the vocal folds to come apart and together because they're stretched taut. The tension between them is higher. And so in those cases, even from early on in the breath cycle, we will have the abdominal muscles engaged to create a higher upward pressure on the diaphragm and give us the support we need for those high notes. Great. I hope that this has demystified a little bit the process of breathing and breathing for singing. I really look forward to seeing you all either in person for students and faculty who are part of Oberlin's testing process this coming Monday night at 7:15 Eastern or online via Zoom. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your week and have a great weekend.